class was made by a hair shampoo company, Brute. Right. Wow. And the rights on movies that are owned by shampoo companies are really hard to navigate. We're getting a cheer from someone over here. And they just couldn't really untangle the rights to the shampoo movie. Oh!
You need a commissioner company.
Oh! Look at it. I made people believe that one.
Shaped donuts. They are absolutely delicious.
Just to get one thing straight, this is bullshit.
This is probably the second weirdest movie I've ever made.
It was the most insane 3 minutes of film you can ever see.
Maybe that's where you thought there should be more boobs.
We have sold more alcohol tonight than at any point in the history of the Fest.
Well, Elijah's the only star I kind of know, so...
To the great Rudy Ray Moore! Come on, it's Beyond Fest, it's Rudy Ray Moore, put your weight on it! Rudy Ray Moore! What have we got tonight, Christian Parks?
Oh my God, so in 1982, Walter Hill gave us 48 Hours with the character Reggie Hammond, played by Eddie Murphy. In 1983, John Landis gave us Trading Places with Billy Ray Valentine, played by Eddie Murphy. And then in 1984, some director we don't know, gave us Beverly Hills Cop, Axel Foley, played by Eddie Murphy. He went into hibernation, he did some stuff, but now he came back with his best role since all the way back then, tonight, as Rudy Ray Moore. What's the film, Grant?
Dolomite Is My Name! Brought to you by the good people at Netflix, and then afterwards we're going to have a Q&A with, it was supposedly moderated by Stephanie Allen, who's going to make it, but unfortunately she can't, and so instead you have me instead. Sorry about that. Apologize. But tonight we got two of the greatest living screenwriters here with me. They're both great and living. Scott Alexander Larry Karaszewski are joining us. True members of the People's Republic, and we know this because when I first watched Mooch Goes to Hollywood, the first person I texted was Larry Karaszewski, so he's a deep member of the People's Republic. Afterwards, we got a Q&A where we got our good friends at Xenon and Actress giving us Dolomite. The original Dolomite will be playing on the big screen. And after you watch this film, you want to watch Dolomite immediately. Yeah, brilliant.
I want to thank our sponsors, Hulu, who make this festival possible.
And I would like to thank the American Cinematheque, all the staff, projectionist Ben up there, all doing the Lord's work. Without them, you would be sat here, so please give it up to them.
I got to thank everyone for coming out. This is, we've had, the first year we had one actual real sold out show, and then this year, 7 years later, we're like 8, 10 like sold out shows deep. It's insane how this thing has changed, but it's really all down to you. Obviously the staff make this happen, but if you don't come out and support independent cinema in an independent theater like this doesn't happen. So a very genuine, honest, sincere, humble thank you from all of us to all of you for coming out and supporting this film and the rest of the festival. So seriously, thank you all. Thank you. So this is the point when we just like throw things that we love in the audience.
In 2003, the great Rudy Ray Moore was sitting right where we are. And as American Cinematheque, we're a nonprofit, we don't pay our guests. But we paid Rudy Ray Moore because he's motherfucking Dolomite. Dolomite is my name! Two of our greatest living screenwriters. Hell, let's be honest, they're better than most of the dead ones. They find the voice, the humor, and the humanity in all their characters, whether they're from Kentucky or Hungary, Arkansas, or Brentwood. They've given us gifts like Big Eyes, People vs. Larry Flynn, People vs. O.J. Simpson, Man on the Moon, one of the greatest films ever made, Ed Wood, and tonight they give us Dolomite Is My Name, Larry Karaszewski and Scott Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you. That's in the bathroom. I just pulled a Christine Lottie.
Actually, before we even start anything, it was such a beautiful thing tonight to be here, and I'm sitting right behind the real Ben Taylor, the real Jimmy Lynch. They're here in the audience.
And Nick von Sternberg.
And the real Nick von Sternberg.
You guys want to stand up?
It all starts with Rudy Ray Moore. How did you guys discover the stylings of Rudy Ray Moore?
We discovered the stylings back when we were living in Silver Lake in the mid-'80s. Yep. And Dan Waters was managing Video House on Glendale Boulevard, and he came home with the best of Sex and Violence. I think it was a Charlie Band release?
Yes, it was.
And it had the Dolomite, Human Tornado, and the Disco Godfather trailers on it, which, I mean, the Human Tornado trailer is the most insane 3 minutes of film you can ever see. And because Dan ran the store, we didn't return the tape. And we would just have friends over and say, you just gotta sit down, and we got something to show you.
Yeah.
And we just watch this thing over and over.
I actually became so obsessed with it for my birthday that year. This was before the internet. You just couldn't go and find videotapes, and even
Yours before the internet.
and you could just make video stuff. So Scott actually tracked down Xenon Video, where their corporate offices were, and he drove over there, and he went to the the floor.
Drove over with a lot of cash.
Yeah, and was like, I want to buy a videotape. Like, this is not a retail business. We can't make change. But Scott wound up giving me the Human Tornado VHS for my birthday that year. Thank you, Scott.
So, how did the project come about, and why make a film about Rudy Ray Moore? What was the...
Well, this goes back almost 16 years. We got a phone call one day that Eddie Murphy wanted to meet us. I'm like, oh my God, Eddie Murphy wanted to meet us. Wow, that's fantastic. So we went out to Eddie Murphy's office, and we walked in, and Eddie starts doing lines from Ed Wood. He was just like doing like scenes from Ed Wood. We're just like told us, holy shit, you know. And he was doing imitations of Tor Johnson, like do my toes. And we couldn't believe what was happening. Right?
I mean, Eddie has incredible memory, so he can just do scenes from movies and play every part.
Yeah. And then he looked at us and said, "Do you guys know who Rudy Ray Moore is?" We're like, holy fuck, yes, we know who Rudy Ray Moore is. And instantly, like in our heads, it all came together.
All right, we get it. Eddie loves Rudy. Eddie wants to make a movie about Rudy. He got the Ed Wood guys out. Yes, this sounds amazing. And so Eddie waved his magic fairy dust, and a week later, we were in a room with Rudy.
Yeah.
And we spent the day with Rudy. I think he ordered calzone for lunch. A lot of calzone. Bags of calzone.
Yes.
Doggy bags of calzone. And he told us about his life, and Rudy definitely saw himself as the subject of a motion picture.
Yes.
And he was really tickled that we want to make a movie about him. He would prefer to play himself. But if we're not going to cast Rudy, he thought Eddie would be pretty great.
I mean, he was great because I mean, his entire life he always felt like showbiz didn't pay enough attention to him, and the fact that Eddie Murphy wanted to play him and we wanted to write it meant something to him a great deal.
And probably the coolest moment I mean, we had the Eddie Day and we had the Rudy Day, and then at some point Eddie calls Rudy on the speakerphone and they start doing snaps on each other.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And we just watched Rudy and Eddie doing, well, your mom is so fat.
Yeah.
Doing this shit back and forth with each other. It was amazing. Like, wow.
And then we went to try to set up the movie, and no one gave a shit. It was one of those things where, like, a lot of times, whatever, 9 times out of 10, you can't get your movie made. But even with us and Eddie, the studios didn't want to make a Rudy Ray Moore movie. I think they were afraid of the language, they were afraid of whatever. It just sounded too cringe.
Definitely who is this?
Yeah, they totally didn't know. And we felt bad because we let Rudy down, and it all sort of went away.
And Rudy died about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, over the years we would sort of, hear chitter-chatter that someone wanted to make a Dolomite sequel or somebody wanted to make a movie about Rudy, and occasionally they would meet with us, we'd say, good luck. It's like, we'll be the first ones in line buying a ticket.
Yeah, we assumed someone else would do it.
It just never happened. And then after we did People vs. OJ, we had a bit of juice again because careers are like this, and we sort of talked. Bless you. We said we wonder if we can bring back the Rudy Project.
Yeah.
And we were meeting with our producers John Davis and John Fox, and they sort of sent word to Eddie, sort of like, "Do you want to get the band back together?" And Eddie was like, "Fuck yeah!" And a few days later, we were sitting in Netflix. And Larry and I were, because we'd had sort of this, not perfect experience 15, 17 years earlier trying to pitch this movie and no one knew what we were talking about. We had this whole elaborate 15, 20 minutes trying to explain who Rudy is and what he means to the black community and how he's an icon to this whole generation of black comics and blah, 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 blah. And we're meeting with Ted Sarandos, who just sort of cuts us off and says, guys, I know who Rudy is. I used to run video stores. So he's running video stores in the 80s, and he says, Rudy was keeping us in business.
Yeah. No.
Every video store had VHS copies of all the Rudy titles. So he got it, and then Eddie showed up at the meeting, and Eddie started doing Rudy, and as soon as Eddie's doing Rudy, it's like, we don't even have to talk. And they bought it in the room, and we wrote our first draft, and we broke a cardinal rule. If any of you are screenwriters, our agent from 25 years ago told us the cardinal rule is never, never, never write for an actor. And we followed that rule until this script, because he had told us all these stories where he was working at CAA back in the 90s, and there's all these movies being developed for all the big names, and the actors would never even read the scripts. All these writers would sort of like work a year and then turn it in and it would just go into a black hole and never be seen again. And so we never did it until the script. And we sort of went as far away from that philosophy as you can, which was we're only writing it for Eddie. It's all we cared about, and we threw in a lot of obscure, whatever. We threw in a joke about Players Magazine. It's not even in the movie, but we knew Eddie would laugh. And we're putting this stuff in there. We just wanted to please Eddie because we knew if Eddie loves the script, we got a movie, and if Eddie doesn't like the script, no one's going to make this movie.
And strange enough, we were writing the movie as a tribute to Rudy Ray Moore, but we were also writing the movie as a tribute to Eddie Murphy. That we were such big fans of Eddie Murphy, and we just wanted to write the greatest Eddie Murphy movie possible, where we felt he was the funniest guy alive, he was a true movie star, he's been away from the screen for a long time. We wanted to combine all the talents that he had, and so our goal was just to bring Eddie back, and we're so happy that we're getting the reaction that we have.
Woo! And what's great about doing both is Eddie Murphy is such an icon. You can't usually help but think, well, that's Eddie Murphy. But when you watch this movie, you lose Eddie Murphy a little bit, and a lot. And he is Rudy Ray Moore. Can you talk about his prep?
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is that we thought maybe he would do some kind of put makeup on and do a complete imitation of Rudy. And he does a little bit. He gets the voice down. But what's interesting is he didn't want to make Rudy a caricature. So it's sort of Eddie and it's Rudy. And it's like he plays Rudy as a real person as opposed to just being, it could have easily been a cartoon. And it's so great that he didn't do that.
I mean, our day with Rudy 1,000 years ago was so impactful because Rudy in real life is not the guy in the movies. Yeah. And he was very soft-spoken, and he was thoughtful, and he seemed very vulnerable and kind of beaten down. And that's not the braggart in the purple hat who's in those movies. Yeah. And so we were really sort of struck that everyone knows that persona. It's like he's like a superhero. It's like Bruce Wayne and Batman, But the real Rudy was sort of interesting to us, and that was the kind of character that Eddie's never been asked to play before, which was a very vulnerable, wounded guy. And then at a certain point, he then gets to put on the hat, and he's got the cane, and then he turns into this second person.
Yeah. And part of the thing that helped that was Lady Reed, who's the heart of this film, and
ain't she great?
And become such a confidant. And when did you discover in the writing process, really, that was the heart? Otherwise, it's just about one guy.
It happened in the writing process, and a lot of it happened also just with Divine Joy Randolph, who just came to play in such a great way. It's so great. Thank you. One of the amazing things we're a little bit on this press tour now, and that last scene where she sort of thanks Rudy for putting someone who looks like her on the screen, she actually admits, she's like, I'm not acting in that scene. I actually came out and I was thanking Eddie for putting me in this movie. Like, people don't know who I am. I've never, and for her, all the emotion was 100% real. And when she tells us, she's actually crying on stage, and I'm crying, and every time I watch it every night, I start weeping.
Yeah, I mean, we had our premiere at Toronto, and the guy who runs the festival, he's doing, ladies and gentlemen, Craig Robinson, and my cabs, and then Divine Joy Randolph. And then she comes out and she's bursting into tears on stage because she is experiencing what Lady Reed experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all happening for real for her.
So we could talk about some of the actors in this film that are incredible. Wesley Snipes is a major turn in this.
Well, what's funny about Wesley is that we actually wrote, it's not like the lines are changed or anything, but we wrote Dervell Martin as sort of the straight guy. Because he's the
heavy.
Yeah, he was a real actor. He had worked in show business. He'd worked in Hollywood, and so he looked at it as like working with these guys was beneath him. So, and that's actually why Wesley got cast. We wanted to cast an actor who isn't a comedian. Almost everyone else in the movie is a comedian. We wanted to cast a guy who had real dramatic chops, who would look down on working with these people. But clearly, driving to the set that first day, Wesley decided, no, I'm not going to be the motherfucker who's in this movie and not getting laughs. I'm going to be the funniest motherfucker in this movie. And and like he came to play, and the first one we were like, holy shit, you know, you didn't quite know whether it was going to work or not, but it worked. So he's freaking amazing.
I mean, the way the schedule worked out, Wesley's first day was the character's first day.
Yeah.
They meet him in the strip joint, and we were there, and he's just doing that whole, keep on trucking, baby! Woo! And we're looking over at Craig, he's like, what do you think? He says, pretty funny. Let's just roll with this.
Now, how did Craig Brewer get involved in it?
Eddie loves Hustle and Flow. You know, and yeah, Robert Hustle and Flow is a great movie. And you know,
Craig came in and auditioned.
yeah, true.
And Craig was phenomenal. I mean, there's this weird thing, which is how do directors get a job?
Right.
They do a sizzle reel, and Craig came in and he just started talking theme and saying it's about duality.
Yeah.
It's about a guy who's moving back and forth between his two personas. We thought, okay, he gets it.
And he brought such a musicality to it. You know, I mean, this movie really is a musical, and we had a lot of music stuff in the script, but he brought another level to it. It's just like the film actually plays like a musical at times, and he brought a reality to it. Like it was so. I remember one of the first days on the set, we were at one of the chilling circuit scenes, and we looked around, and Craig's from Memphis. He knows this area. He knows what those clubs look like. And so it wasn't phony baloney. He knew that the drink sign would have like 10 letters missing, and it was just, it felt real.
And he always put a barbecue smoker outside the clubs.
Yeah.
Great touch.
What's really interesting about the film is that you can feel the influence of, I think, the three main creative players, which is, it has that sort of X-rated crazy comedy of early Eddie Murphy. It has that show business snarky biopic thing that we do, and it has that musical, realism that Craig Brewer brings. It really feels like somehow these three things came together, and for some reason it works.
My favorite thing that Craig did that's not in the movie is just, I'm patting Craig on the back. I would say Larry and I and Craig, we just really got into sort of showing the Chitlin circuit, and in that this wasn't a world that has ever shown in movies. Yeah. And we just thought it was so interesting to sort of introduce audiences to it. And we were doing our research, and these places, they were in storefronts, they were in fields, they were in living rooms. And then one of the descriptions we're reading about some club in Missouri, and it was in a barn. And I'm like, wow. And so it's my favorite scene that got cut out of the movie because the movie was running long. It was in a barn, and there was a cow. And so there's this old blues guy playing in there, and it was just so funny because Eddie and Divine walk in, and Eddie does this, it's a cow, it's a real cow coming at him. And it was like, wow, this is real production value. It's like, Edward, is that a real camel? Is that a real cow? But the cow scene got cut out.
Yeah. Actually, my favorite thing that Craig did was sort of at the tail end of the production scenes where it's almost like Richard Rush is the stuntman, where they're shooting the movie, but you're also inside the movie at the same time. So you're watching the movie take place, you're seeing people film it, but they're filming it in a way that doesn't reflect on-set reality. So you're actually tracking the dramatic arc of that scene, but you're also seeing slates, and you're seeing people restart scenes and things like this. So, but you're actually really getting involved in Rudy running away from Dervell Martin, and somehow that just works magically for me.
And there's a fun piece of worthless trivia. The slate that you keep seeing, take one, take two. That's the real slate from Dolomite. Yeah. Which Nick von Sternberg had in his attic, and he climbed around and he found it and he loaned it to us.
Thank you, Nick.
So it was like this magic talisman we had on the set.
This movie pulls off something that's so hard for films to pull off, which is performance. Someone doing performance, especially older comedy, and still keeping it funny and feeling alive. How did that work?
That always made us nervous. We were really nervous about is Signifying Monkey going to play? Because nothing's worse than you've all seen movies about stand-up comics where you see the guy come up on stage and he does something, and they cut to the audience and they're laughing their heads off, and it's not funny.
You're talking about the comedian?
The Robert De Niro, the comedian. Anybody? Really good. Wow.
Should have brought up the comedian.
I mean, even something that works so well like Lenny. The bottom line is as great as that movie is, as great as
It's not funny.
Is, he's not funny. You know, and we got away with it before in Man on the Moon because Andy's not trying to be funny. So he comes out there and shits on the stage and everyone like, you know, they look quizzical. But so for us, that first day, man, when Eddie came out and did Signify, I walked to the set and the second Craig saw me, he's like, grabbed me and brings me up like, now watch this. And it's one shot, I mean, we cut up in the movie, but it's one shot where Eddie walks on stage and does Signifying Monkey and cues the drummer. And you just sat there and you just got chills because here's the thing, what everyone's waiting
Eddie Murphy doing stand-up.
Yeah, everyone's waiting for Eddie to do stand-up again, and here he is.
We're looking at these extras, they're getting paid to watch Eddie Murphy do stand-up.
Yeah.
So Rudy Ray Moore in real life, though, I mean, this has a very upbeat ending, but his life had some ups and downs towards
Well,
the
great, you gotta know when to stop the film. 1975 is when you get out.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when we first discussed it with Netflix, we lied. We said we were going to include Dolomite, Human Tornado, P.D. Weestraw, and Disco Godfather. And by the time we fell in love with him recording albums and selling albums out of his car trunk and then the Chitlin Circuit, it's like, all right, well, that's going to be 60 pages right there.
Yeah.
So we sort of truncated it all. We took some of the greatest hits out of Human Tornado and we snuck them into Dolomite. And the last scene with the theater being sold out all night and then Rudy staying on the sidewalk, that happened at the Woods Theater in Chicago.
Yeah.
Woo!
All right.
Thank you, sir. I mean, it's like with any of our biopics, you know, where's the point where you want to get out of the story where it sort of feels like all the threads have been tied together and it's satisfying, and you don't want to just go out on a downer, because then it's like, well, why did we just spend 2 hours with this person?
But what was really important to us, even though we shortened the time period of the movie, we thought it was extremely important, and Eddie thought it was really important, and I think Rudy really thought it was extremely important that how he influenced the next generation, how the rappers really looked at him as a hero, and it's new.
So we snuck in Lil Don.
Yeah, Eazy-E, all these guys really looked up to him. So for us, that was the puzzle thing. How do we show what he meant to the future generation? And having that kid show up and passing over the cane to us, I think that really made the point.
That's a little corny, but we liked it.
What was there anything that was written on the page that you loved that didn't end up in the film or anything?
There's nothing I think we would like fight desperately to put back in.
Well, we did. So sometimes you write a scene and it's like, oh my god, this is so funny, and then you watch the actors and the dailies are like, oh boy, something just didn't work. When they wrap the movie and Craig very elegantly just put a long fade out in there, and then it goes black, and you're like, oh, what happened? And you find out that no one wants the movie. We actually sort of followed through, and we showed people not wanting the movie, and so we went to a screening room at Universal, and it's like a bunch of these like really stiff Black Tower, Lou Wasserman guys, like watching this and just like, they're as confused by Dolomite as Rudy's friends were confused by the front page.
Yeah.
But of course, because we like bloating everything out with pre-scenes. The first minute of the scene was them walking down the hallway to the screening room discussing the overruns on Jaws. And never shoot in water, and the fucking Xanax. He promised me he would come in at 58 days, and it's just this randomly Jaws physical production conversation. It made us very happy.
The other thing from right around that same time period is after Dimension buys the movie, this is a true story, they had to submit it to the ratings board.
Oh yeah.
So we had a bunch of white ratings board people watching Dolomite trying to figure out what they should rate it. But the problem is they don't understand the cursing. They're like, is rat soup eaten? Is that was that some code for something we don't know? Should this be an X? And they,
So, did you go back and forth on films to pick front page as the film that they saw?
That's funny.
The true story is that we didn't even debate it for a second. I mean, whatever. Larry and I are freaks, and it's just like, whatever. We know our movies from 73, 74, 75, and there's a certain kind of mushy gray area in that 2-year spread that we can work with. And it was like, all right, what's a completely forgotten movie with white people? That was a big hit. It's like Touch of Class.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so perfect. George Segal and Glenda Jackson kind of flirting with each other. And I'm just picturing like my guests like watching this, like, what the fuck?
Trust me, there were a lot of Glenda Jackson jokes.
Oh, we had so many.
They didn't understand.
Better not take off her clothes.
Yeah, exactly. They were complaining about nudity, but then they decided they didn't want to see Glenda Jackson.
And we were just so pleased with ourselves that we're like, oh my God, the whole world has forgotten about Touch of Class except for us.
Yeah.
We're going to bring it back. The Touch of Class was made by a hair shampoo company, Brute.
Right.
Wow. And the rights on movies that are owned by shampoo companies are really hard to navigate. We're getting a cheer from someone over here. And they just couldn't really untangle the rights to the shampoo movie.
Oh! You need a conditioner company.
Oh! Look at, I made 3 people leave for that one. So Touch of Class fell through, and whatever. This is always sort of the fun of making a movie. You get a call, 3 days out. Oh shit, we're shooting the scene at the Orpheum. We can't clear Touch of Class. We made some calls. Universal is being totally cooperative. You can rape and pillage anything from Universal. We're like, great. So we're just going through the Universal catalog from that 2-year period. It's like, ooh, front page. It's Billy Wilder, but the movie doesn't have a lot of friends.
Well, no, well, here's the thing, though. And that's also about A Touch of Class and front page, is that we really weren't going out of our way to say these movies are terrible. Touch of Class is not made for Best Picture.
It wasn't made for Rudy.
The front page was actually, that's people, when you think of the front page, that's a classic American comedy.
Yeah.
But we wanted, I'm saying the front page of the play,
like His Girl Friday.
We just wanted that, so you think, oh, they're going to this movie, and then when you see them sitting in a row, you realize, the whole movie at the end of the day is about what the importance of representation. And you're sitting there and you see Matthau and Lemon going through this old material, and you cut to these guys sitting there and realize this movie does not speak to them. There's no way it's even trying to speak to them. And so then Rudy looks back up in that light. He's got a mission. He's got a mission to make a movie in which someone like Lady Reed can appear on the screen instead of Walter Matthau.
I'm going to go out to the audience here. I know you guys got some questions. Or maybe I was wrong. Right there.
You guys are the greatest biopic writers in the world. Is there another?
He said we're the greatest biopic writers in the world. I just want to make sure.
Are there any biopics that you want to do that you have?
He's asking about, are there any biopics that you want to do?
Well, there are lots and lots and lots, but because it takes so long to get these things on the screen, we can't say them because someone else will get them.
That's true.
But yes, we're not out of ideas, so don't worry.
You guys don't normally get the rights from the people?
We do sometimes.
Sometimes. So how was
the Big Eyes, we got Margaret King's rights because she owned all the art.
Yeah.
And so we knew we had to show the paintings in the movies.
I mean, for the most part, if you're whatever, we know more about like the legalities of all these kind of things than like studio lawyers sometimes. If someone is dead, if someone is a
talking about rights and get another walkout.
Exactly. There's a lot of different rules, and for the most part, like for example, People versus OJ, we made that we had rights from nobody, and it's Marsha Clark or any, then it's just because they're your public figures. You basically have the right to do these kind of things. You have to, if you're using their art, like we had to, for Mr. Ben Taylor, we had to buy the rights to that beautiful song that he wrote, and from that kind of thing. So you have to do that, but you don't have to pay someone to make a movie about their life. And what we try to do is treat the real people with respect, make them a part of the whole thing, and they know that we're not going to fuck them over.
We're trying to make everyone look good.
Yeah.
Right there.
I wanted to ask about how you went about writing the scene where they're writing the actual movie and how that was.
Writing about the writing.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, whatever. We're just ripping on ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is just you throw out an idea you're really excited about, and the person across the room says that's dumb.
Yeah.
Whatever. Jerry, we had so much fun.
Yeah.
I
did an evening when Rudy died.
You did an evening here.
I did an evening on this very stage with real Jerry Jones and with Ben Taylor and with it was a tribute to Rudy after he died, and I got some people like Reggie Hudlin and the guys who made Black Dynamite to come down, and so it was a bit of people talking about his influence and real people, and Nick von Sternberg was there as well, and you got to know the real Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones is great because he held himself with just like such power, and he really was a no-nonsense, serious kind of guy. For a guy who wrote Dolomite, he was really, really serious.
Jerry never seemed to let on that these movies were funny.
Yeah.
He was always very serious, and we had a whole book of all the plays he wrote and the playbills, and they were all very serious and sure of themselves. So we just tried to make Rudy as punk drunk silly in that scene as we could, and we're looking at the time period. What's hot? Bruce Lee's hot. What else? The Exorcist. So this is what Rudy's going to be pitching back.
Rudy eventually made a movie about the devil possession, which is the devil's son-in-law. There is all this kind of stuff. So that scene might have been one of the easiest scenes to write. And this is actually funny that you're at Beyond Fest. This is the second Jerry Jones film that he ran here. Do you know the other one? The Long Goodbye. He's in The Long Goodbye. He's actually in 2 Robert Altman movies. He is the black soldier at the beginning that bookends the movie MASH. In the beginning, he gets his Jeep stolen. And I believe he's a detective in Long Goodbye.
Wow.
Nice. Right there. It's kind of a downer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right, you.
Oh, yes. I love seeing in a movie where D'Urville and Martin compares him to John Cassavetes.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that was very sort of informative of the movie because it's very similar to Ed Wood, how you compare Ed Wood to Orson Welles.
Sure.
They fight for their movies. Have you had any fights for your movies like that before?
Fighting for your movies is similar.
I think every movie is a big fight. We make movies that are sort of fringy and obscure, so it's a battle to get it done.
I mean, Big Eyes was probably the most protracted battle because we were actively trying to make the movie for 12 years, which was just complete madness and self-sabotage.
But the John Cassavetes thing that seemed so obvious to us.
It was just handed to us. Cassavetes is in Rosemary's Baby, and he's shooting movies in his own living room for
his friends. It's exactly the same kind of thing. And
the movies are different.
Less car chases.
Right there.
The Shadows and Pee Wee's are the double bill.
Your first draft, did he have any feedback that helped shape the next draft?
It was amazing. It's Eddie was so on board and wanted to do it, and just it's so nice. This was
not much.
Yeah, this was one of the he turned it on a Friday. By Monday he'd read it and committed to doing it, and it's funny. The other day he was being interviewed somewhere, and he's like, sometimes these things fall together. And the person said, yeah, but it took 16 years. He's like, yeah, but it still fell together. And it's true.
Right there.
A big part of us understanding Rudy is how everything is rooted in his early life and his relationship with his father. How did you decide how much of that stuff to include? Because it kind of comes in small pieces here and there.
He's asking about how did you decide how much to include of Rudy's relationship with his father and his
Actually,
family.
also with the audience tonight is Rudy's biographer, a man named Mark Jason Murray, who would help.
Yes.
He's
the world's living expert on all things Rudy.
And he was amazing. Anytime we had any problems or had questions, we could always call him up, and he would take care of us.
I mean, with Rudy's background, it was probably how little can we get away with and still have a punch, because my childhood was so rough that you can only do so much of that.
Well, a lot of movies do. A lot of movies shut down for that kind of stuff, and I think we kind of don't buy that.
I think we got the walk and talk with Tony, and then we've got the monologue with the mirror.
Yeah, and even Tony says, all of us have shitty jobs. We all have shitty. We kind of hate when movies shut down for that. That's why he's doing this is because of that thing that happened when he was 10. It's like, come on. But that being said,
I'm remembering sort of the different cuts of the movie, and whatever. You always have those things where you have a test screening and the audience really likes the movie, but who thinks it's too slow? Fuck you! Shut up. And so then everyone goes gunning for scenes in the cutting room, and the walk and talk with Tony, where they talk about we both had shitty childhoods. that scene always had a gun pointed at it because you could do a clean lift and just cut to the barbecue.
Well, the crazy thing is the scene that.
But we fought to keep it,
Yeah.
just because it helps humanize
The scene that did get lost for a couple screenings was Eddie alone at the Dunbar Hotel.
The other scene about your dad.
Because that is a clean lift, and no, you don't miss it, and actually slows things down a bit. But for us, it was just a beautiful moment, just on Eddie and just on Rudy, and just kind of you see him working his stuff out, and we felt that it worked so much better with that scene.
And then Craig wisely knew that it was really going to take a lot out of Eddie shooting that scene. It was literally the last shot Eddie ever did on the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the last shot of Last Night.
That was legitimately one of my favorite shots in the whole scenes in the whole film. Is that him looking in the mirror like that? That would have been very remiss had that been missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. It's so powerful that when you cut to the next scene, it takes a few minutes for that. The next scene is the scene where Lady Reed and the warden, which to me is one of the funniest scenes whatsoever. But it takes a little while to get back to the comedy because Eddie is just so staring at it. You're like you're taken aback a bit.
And so just to show you how I mean with Larry and I, everything is fodder, and we just sort of endlessly repurpose our own lives for material. I mean, we just shove in whatever we like if we think it'll make the scene work. So the warden talking to Lady, crazy with the warden, and Mark, you still don't know his name.
Right.
The warden is the only actor from the movie that no one knows who he is, which has made us crazy because we just wanted to type.
There's no credit for him.
William, no one knows his name, so we don't know anything about this poor white man from 1975. And so we sort of wanted to give him a little scene, and now this goes back to shooting Ed Wood back in 1993. A good buddy of Ed Wood's named David Ward would hang around the set when we were shooting, and we were hanging out with David, and then David is sort of this legendary fringe figure, Hollywood Boulevard figure, who spent his entire life trying to get into SAG. And then when he lowered his goal, and he just wanted to become a union extra. But he could never cross that threshold, so it's like when they have a stadium, all the extras in the lower bleacher get a hot lunch, and then the extras higher up, they get a sack lunch, and that was David. And so when we were talking to David, it's like, well, what do you do? How do you keep busy? He says, well, I'm the white heavy around town. And that was David's speech from 26 years ago, which was I played a plantation owner at the Wilshire Bell. And this is like David telling us stories, and we always remembered that, so we gave it to the warden.
Strangely, somebody wrote a script about David. It's called a legendary unproduced script by a guy named Len Dobbs called Ed Ford, or is it Ed Ford? Yeah,
Edward Ford.
Edward Ford, and it's basically David Ward, because David Ward lived in the same apartment building as Len Dobbs did.
Right there, Christian.
Do you hope to get a shot at directing?
Do we want to direct? We have directed the movie. Someday maybe we'll do it again.
Sure.
It's very nice for us.
Because we're lazy.
We're lazy. We can sleep in the morning, and we've been very fortunate that our biopic movies, particularly, have really come out the way we wanted them to. And you have the directors completely. You got Milos Forman, you have Tim Burton, you have Craig Brewer, you have Ryan Murphy, you've got Paul Schrader, you've got these very different kind of directors, and they all put their personal stamp on the things, but they feel like Scott and Larry movies. And so we've been able to sort of, what the actual word auteur means, author, we've been able to be the auteurs of our own pieces and sleep in.
Where do you see this fit?
We had this. We had this premiere in Toronto. It was on a Saturday night a few weeks ago, and whatever. We're like the writers. We fly in the day before, we sleep in, we check things out. Meanwhile, Craig is shooting with Eddie in Atlanta until 1 a.m. on Friday night.
Coming to America.
Coming to America too. Then he's got to get on a plane at 1 in the morning. Then flying in, and then we had a press junket at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure when he went to bed. And I'm thinking, I'm glad I'm not directing that movie right now.
We got time for one more question.
Right there, the waving of the hands. No, you're pointing. It was a pass. You passed. Okay, you passed the question here.
Well, my name is Brenda Dean Durham. I'm actually in the movie.
Oh!
I am the one that was watching the stage when I said, "My baby!"
Oh! You are great. You are terrific.
Some of the best acting I've ever seen.
And I just wanted to say this movie speaks to me, and I'm so appreciative that you guys did it. Love you guys.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's a great way to end on. Speaks to all of us. Thank you guys for coming out. Appreciate it. Scott Larry!
Hey Scott, I'd like to go show the same.